Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about transit Chiron Sextile or Trine one's natal Mercury. Now, this transit could manifest in physical and emotional wounds, helping and healing others, depleted self-esteem, being in harmony with your communications, what you're learning, assimilating information. I'm going to elaborate and expound on that. This could be about really being able to articulate very well how you're going to help and heal others. And if you have any issues, with depleted self-esteem or self-worth, this is the time where it might be easier for you to communicate about them. Now, at the time of this video, transit Chiron is in Aries. At the time of the making of the video, I should say, the transit Chiron is in Aries. So many people, collectively may have, some issues with identity or, worthiness, and, could be what their place in the world is at this, point in time. And it might be easier if you're having, this transit, making, sextile or trine to your natal Mercury. It may be easier to talk about it at this, point in time. Let's say if your natal Mercury is in Aquarius and you're having this transit from transit Chiron in Aries, making the sextile or trine to it, it could be easier to talk about these things in a very clear, loose, and very perspicacious, like Aquarius like manner. And this could also be a time when this transit, does take place, that if you're dealing with any physical or emotional related wounds or suffering or anguish, that siblings, cousins, neighbors, they could be beneficial to it more so than usual. Now, what I want to get at is that the transit, Chiron, naturally doesn't supplant or replace your natal Chiron placement. Your natal Chiron placement, of course, is there, for the duration, the entirety of your life. That's a constant. When the transit takes place, you may feel some effects during the time of that transit, but it doesn't supplant what you have as far as your your natal placement of your natal, as far as your natal Chiron goes. And also too, some of you may wonder, well, what is the difference between this transit and the conjunction transit? Now, when you have transit Chiron making a sextile or trine to the natal Mercury, of course, the energy is very flowing. It's a positive aspect. It's auspicious. It's a good blending of Chiron and Mercury. When you have the conjunction transit, well, conjunctions are neutral aspects. So they could have, a conjunction can have good and bad qualities in it. It's very intensifying and integrating. It's a strong concentration of energy. If you have the transit Chiron making a conjunction to the natal Mercury, well, there might be so much, for example, there could be so much of a focus on communicating about your physical and emotional wounds and suffering. It can be to the point where it could be to the exclusion of other things, where you become oblivious to other things in your life. So in where you might put other things off as a result. So it does, it has, conjunction again is neutral, kind of good and bad qualities. But anyway, another thing too is that when this transit does take place, if you're having, let's say if you have any issues that are anatomically connected with Mercury, such as the arms, the hands, the lungs, nerves, breathing at this time, this could be a time where it may be propitious to have those matters healed and taken care of. If you've been procrastinating or hesitating on these matters, it could be the time where it's more of an opportunity to get hold of a physician, I would say with less delay or diversion or distractions at this time, and be able to do something about it. Mercury is also connected with the brain, so in some remote cases, if there are any issues with that, this is the time where something may be able to be done, regarding that at this point in time. So it can be a beneficial transit to be able to do things that are positive in terms of, mending if there's any physical related wounds with what I just described that's anatomically connected with Mercury. Now, it's also a point in time when this transit takes place. It may be better, more of an opportunity to analyze, really more what is actually going on, if there's any kind of suffering that you may be, going through. If you have, say, if the transit Chiron is in Aquarius, it could be, issues with, integrating with society or matters pertaining, to groups, clubs, organizations. It could be friendships. You might feel that, you're ostracized. There might be feelings of ostracism by others, and it may be a time where you could analyze more, what the feeling is actually coming from, what is this attributed, why is this actually transpiring, as an example. And it's also a time where, if you're going through, any hardship, at this time, there's something negative or adverse going on in your life, it could simply be, taking a short journey or short trip somewhere, might help alleviate, some of those issues, even if it just provides, a distraction or a diversion. It may not eradicate, the situation or problem, but it can be a time where, you might taking a short trip, whether it's with family or could be by yourself, just to be alone, with your thoughts and get away and be able to maybe try to deal with what's actually happening, and even maybe formulate some kind of plan to actually extricate yourself from the suffering. As an example, it could also be to that people that are prominent in your early education may be around to help out if there's anything that you're dealing with, any kind of suffering, anguish, or if there's some feeling of some ineptitude or weakness at this time. And it may not necessarily be an actual weakness, or or where you're inept at something. It could just be what's perceived as such at this time. And also to the manner in which you may be helping other people and healing others may be more, people, Mercury related people, called mercurial people, such as siblings, cousins, neighbors, people that were prominent in your early education. It could be people that well during your short journeys. These people may be more in harmony, with it at this time. If the transit Chiron is in Pisces, say, it could simply be, showing a lot of sacrifice, altruism, for others, encouraging forgiveness, compassion, or maybe even doing something connected with the metaphysical, which includes astrology, and maybe helping people, get through their situation by understanding their own chart, as an example. So, another way, this transit, could manifest at this time. It can be positive for helping and healing, which is Chiron. It could be others, again, through communication, which is Mercury. Let's say if you have your natal Mercury in Aries, it could be just simply by being very direct, forthright, outspoken, even pioneering and innovative at this time. Maybe giving some people some ideas that might be very new and be able to help them, in this manner. It could also be a time where if there's any issues with depleted self-esteem, which is Chiron, may be dealt with by simply learning and assimilating information, which is Mercury. Now, let's say, for example, if the natal Mercury is in Taurus, that learning may be done, very methodical manner, through visual demonstration, may be done with a lot of persistence as well. And Taurus is about self-worth and self-esteem, so that could be a very good transit to be able to cope, be able to figure out what you're going to do in those matters that are connected with that. And hold on a moment, people. And also Taurus is about making money, so it could be by formulating a financial plan to generate income as another example. But now another way this transit could be expressed, it could also be propitious to deal with suffering, which is Chiron, and being assisted by siblings, cousins, neighbors, people that are prominent in your early education and short journeys, which is Mercury. If, let's say the transit Chiron is in Pisces in the ninth house, it could be, if there was any suffering dealing with the deceptive or duplicitous, which is Pisces, it could be a religious congregation, which is the ninth house. And also, physical, and emotional trauma, which is Chiron, may be helped just again by taking short journeys. What I was reiterating, what I was stating before. The natal Mercury is in Pisces, it could be very convoluted. Short journeys. Natal Mercury is in Aries, it could be ones that are very quick and abrupt, as another example. But anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.